So I'm sitting here with one of my big inspirations, Rabbi Simon Jacobson. We've met, Rabbi Jacobson. Thank you so much for your time. You're very gracious, and I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure. It's always good to see you.
We're good friends.
Yes, we are.
And you're a very inspiring person to me, and I follow you, and I'm a Talmud of yours for years now. And I take this opportunity to talk about world affairs, to talk about the state of the world, because after all, first of all, Hanukkah is approaching. Tomorrow is Hanukkah starting. By the time this video will get out, it's going to be already Hanukkah. And also the secular New Year is approaching. And although we have our own calendar, but nevertheless, the secular New Year, it does have a meaning. Every secular holiday, let's say, or at least milestone has some sort of a meaning. We have sources in Chazal regarding that. So I just want to get your take on where we're standing now. We're entering now a new year, a new secular year.
Yeah.
And it's been a very, what's the word, tumultuous year, 2024.
That's a good word.
It was tumultuous. It started off, I think, very low as far as the Jewish people were concerned, especially the matzah of the situation in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel, but also other places. And and now it seems that, thank God, we are holding in a much better place. Hamas has fallen apart. Hezbollah has fallen apart. There's a regime change in Syria nobody expected, I think. Iran seems to be losing a lot of ground. There's a new president elect in the United States, which itself is a miracle. What's your take?
And you should add the upheavals in France and in Germany and Canada, South Korea.
You got the governments falling all over the place.
And then there's Putin in Russia and Ukraine. Yeah.
So
Basically, as you said, tumultuous.
It's mamish tumultuous. So what's your take on this?
So first of all, thank you for having me. And happy Hanukkah to you and to everyone, to all your listeners. Hanukkah, as you know, is also a universal holiday, celebrating the power of light over darkness. So right away fits into the message. So the first thing that comes to mind is that we, the Jewish people, we've been around. We've seen this already. Not that it makes it less painful and less challenging, but once you fought the wars, you feel a confidence. So we've gone through how many tumultuous experiences, back from the Jews in Egypt. I'm going back almost 3,500 years ago. We had to deal with the Babylonians, and we had to deal with the Assyrians, and with the Romans, and with the Persians and the Greeks, and the Syrians, because Hanukkah. So, and yet, despite all the challenges, we've always prevailed. So I'm very confident that we will do so now as well. I'll quote a medrash. A medrash is one of the oral interpretations that the Lubavitcher Rebbe quoted during the Persian Gulf War, that there'll be upheavals in the world, and the people in the world will be afraid what's happening. And the Jewish people will say, what's happening, we're afraid. And God will say, my children, don't be afraid. I've done it all for you. Every type of disruption is meant to lead to something greater. Higias mangulatchem. Your time of redemption has come. So I look at these as like a market correction, for lack of a better way of putting it.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Where things sometimes have to be shaken up before it settles. Before October 7th, it wasn't like the world was perfect. So sometimes you need to expose things. It was very painful. 1,200 people massacred in the most brutal way. So I'm not in any way, we cry with that. They're hostages that we're praying for. But at the end of the day, as you said, Israel got its act together. And it just tells you have to eliminate these enemies. Don't be delusional into thinking they're just going to go away. And the world has to thank Israel for what it has done. So I look at the future being very bright, and I go back, let's go to the Hanukkah message. You know what happened there? The Syrians, of all people, the Antiochus, the king, he had a major army, and he wanted to suppress the Jewish people who are a minority. And miraculously, a few of the Jews were able to prevail over many of the Syrians. And they won in that. They won the battle, and then they found the cruise of oil. The message essentially is that even in the darkest situations and hopelessness, there's oil always burning. There's always a spark. And miracles happen. So I think it couldn't be a more appropriate lesson to us today that each of us, whether personally we're going through our own challenges or collectively in the world, that all these disruptions, at the end of the day, you have to look at the big picture. They're stepping stones to a greater...
And you see the puzzle falling into place?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I see it this way. If you can eliminate the real bad players, like you mentioned Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran and its proxies, the Houthis, and Israel can make peace with Saudi Arabia like it did with the Emirates.
Yeah.
And Syria does become more, let's put it this way, more at peace with Israel and the region. Why can't the whole region become historically a new story? You know, once upon a time, the Christians were the ones that persecuted the world.
Yeah.
The Muslims have to go through their market correction. Let's put it, you know, so.
I hope it doesn't take them that long.
No, absolutely. So I think absolutely that I feel that's what we're headed. Anyone that comes from the Middle East knows you can't negotiate there. You have to show strength. It's the only way you get what you have to get. Negotiations is the Western world learned capitalism. They negotiate. And I think it's important to have strength. But most importantly, remember, we celebrate Hanukkah not for the victory of the war. We celebrate light. We're not here just to vanquish our enemies. We're here to spread light. And we stand for something. Israel stands for something. The Jewish people stand for something. We stand for values. We stand for freedom. You know, in the Supreme Court in 1989, when there was a Supreme Court question whether you can display the Hanukkah menorah in public.
Yes.
So in the United States, the question was separation of church and state.
Church and state, yes.
So how could you put it in a public square or in a government location? And ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled yes, because one of the arguments was because Hanukkah is a universal holiday, like Thanksgiving. It's thanking God for the victory, religious freedom for all. It wasn't a Jewish message. It was a universal message. I think that's unbelievable.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah,
that a secular court recognized.
Yeah, and the fact that little light can dispel a lot of darkness. What more powerful message than that?
I listen to a lot of your shiurim, and you always have a very practical way of looking at things, very down to earth. Like you got lofty ideas, but how to apply them into applied chassidus, you call it.
Right.
How to apply to everyday life in a very practical manner, because that's what my impression is, at least, is that people are looking for that sort of message. People are looking for, theories and ideas are great, but then what can I do? How to change my everyday life? Give me 3 things that I need to do from now on that will change my life. And I for a while I thought it's like what is it? It's witchcraft that you do, hocus pocus, and then things are going to turn around. But then I realized that no, you just need to do small things. So one of the things that I speak a lot about is Thanksgiving. In the morning, you wake up and we say Modeh ani lefanecha. The Jewish way of waking up is you open your eyes, you sit up in bed, and you thank God that you're alive. Which is not just a nice prayer, which it is, but also, more importantly perhaps, puts you in perspective. Okay, so it's like a compass. It puts you in perspective that there is something greater than you, something bigger than you.
Good.
You have a purpose of waking up is not just self-serving, but also serves a greater purpose. So that's like one of the things that I think everybody should learn from the Jews. And also, before you go to bed, same idea. Before you go to bed, you make something we call a cheshbon hanefesh. You make an accounting of your day, and you put out new goals for the next day to come. Do you have any other ideas such as this off the cuff? And I'm sorry to jump on you like this without preparing, but do you have washing hands? I don't know what it is.
No, it's excellent examples you gave. I would just add the Modan is also setting the tone, like your mission. Thank you for returning my soul to me. My soul is the center of my life. That's the purpose of my life, my calling. And the rest of the day, whether it's your work or your personal life or family or leisure, is all driven by your mission. I would just add that. That we're Hanukkah, I think some practical lessons is number one is always remember, no matter what situation you're in, there's always a cruise of oil, of pure oil in your heart and soul. So even when things seem hopeless or dark, and there are many reasons to be depressed, the Hanukkah message to always remember good is there lying within every dark state. There's always goodness. The second thing is that good is stronger than bad. Light is always stronger than darkness. Light dispels darkness. Like fire and water, enough fire can evaporate large bodies of water. Enough water will extinguish a big fire. But when it comes to light and dark, if it's a dark room, all you got to do is put a little light and right away, automatically. You may need more light if it's a very dark room. So bottom line is the good is always more powerful than bad. So even when there's evil in the world, remember, darkness is only the absence of light. What does light mean on a practical level? Whenever you have a situation, do a good deed, show some kindness. So even when things are not so good, you still always have to bring light into the world. And finally, I would say the concept that every night of Hanukkah we light another extra light. Always grow in your good deeds. Ma'alim b'kodesh, everything that's holy and sacred, always make sure if you did something yesterday once, do it today twice, the next day 3 times. These are the things, the accumulative growth that comes from step-by-step process. These are some short tips, if you wish, that we can learn from Hanukkah that we can do on a daily basis throughout the year.
What would you say the biggest challenges of the world today, or the biggest opportunities, let's say, from a different aspect, for the coming secular year? What are the things that we should be focusing on? And when I say we, I don't just mean the Jews.
This is good, by the way? The challenges
that we face, and when I say we, I don't mean just the Jewish people, but anybody who's God-fearing.
I think one of the big challenges is the dissonance and disproportion between our material success and technology successes in our personal lives. So the gap is growing. We have never communicated faster than we can today.
True.
And with AI, new advancements in efficiency. But then you look at the state of affairs with families and children and marriage and love. And I think there's more disconnection than ever before as well. So I think finding a way to balance the two, that we should not be deceived that material prosperity doesn't mean spiritual happiness. And that to truly be happy, you need to find a way to understand what is the spiritual purpose of your life. Not just make more money and have more gadgets and gimmicks to be able to entertain ourselves. That I think is a great challenge I find both individually and collectively. Someone just told me my wife spends more time on the phone than with me and my family.
That's horrible.
So I asked the wife, she says, my husband spends more time with his phone. So everybody's, So you're dealing with the human touch that we need to have and refocus on the things that technology can't help with, which is heart-to-heart conversations. When's the last time you spoke to someone eye to eye? Not through text and not through
WhatsApp
phones,
or
right?
whatever.
Yeah. So I think that's a big challenge that's affecting us all. I think the disruptions in the world are making everybody very uneasy, and that we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. COVID in a way began disrupting things, and now with all these things going on in the countries, in the world, so people are very, I could see they're on edge. And this is where you need more than ever to build your spiritual foundations. A good swimmer is not someone that avoids the storms, he just knows how to navigate through the storms. So I think developing the navigational tools that you mentioned before, the compass in the morning, the GPS, focus. No business can function without a mission. You have to focus, what's your personal mission in life? And it's more necessary than ever when things are moving so fast and so quickly, because today anything that happens is immediately broadcast to everyone. Those are the ones that come to mind, the biggest challenges I find.
So many people know, and many people, and even probably some people don't yet, that you're personal friends with the Argentinian president, President Javier Milei,
Yes.
who has been elected to the president of Argentina, and he's been very successful since, and has turned around the Argentinian economy. Not many people read about this in Hungary, or maybe they do if they read Neocon. But could you tell me how that friendship went about, just as a gossip? It's very interesting.
Absolutely. Last year, September 2023, He was here in New York. He was going to the Ohel of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was running for president, but he was an underdog. No one thought he could win. A friend of mine called me and said, would you meet him? He's going to be in Crown Heights on I remember Sunday afternoon. So I said, fine. There was no, it was a complete.
By the way, why did he come to New York to the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Ohel?
Because he knew some business people, and they said, why don't you go? You go to New York, you get a blessing. Can't hurt, you know.
And he did?
Yeah.
It did help?
So I met him. I gave him a copy of my book, Toward a Meaningful Life, in Spanish.
A book that's been translated to Hungarian also.
Exactly. And I was telling him a bit about what I did. That for years I memorized the Lubavitcher Rebbe's words on Shabbos and holidays when there were no recordings and no notes. And he was so taken. I remember he was sitting there. He said, wow, you listened to the master. You absorbed all that he said. And I saw right away that, you know, we bonded. There was something about him that he like appreciated, not the intellectual ability to do it, but just the what we call in Chassidus the bittul, the ability to just listen and absorb.
So put yourself to the back burner.
Right, and let the teacher speak and you absorb it. And the next thing I know, the next few days, he's on television in Argentina talking about it with admiration. He says, I got a book from this man. I got a book.
You mentioned you on
Yeah.
Argentinian national TV.
Exactly. Then this was September.
Hay un libro que tiene, digamos, o sea, enseñanzas del Rebbe, ¿sí? Y entonces cuando vos vas, digamos, te suelen regalar ese libro. Ahora, ¿cómo es que se escribió eso?
¿Cómo?
Porque eso es lo interesante. El Rebbe daba, digamos, hablaba en Shabbat. Pero ¿cuál es el problema? Vos no podés escribir, no podés hacer nada. Entonces, ¿cómo es que se escribió eso? ¿Sí o no?
Sí, ¿cómo se escribió?
Ah, esto es lo interesante. Bueno, había 5 rabinos que se aprendían de memoria el discurso del Rebbe.
Mira vos.
Y cuando terminaba el Shabbat escribían. Y el Rebbe después iba y lo editaba, lo revisaba. Bueno, tuve la posibilidad, tuve el honor, uno de esos rabinos, ¿sí?, volcó en un libro esas enseñanzas. Y tuve el privilegio de que me lo regalara y me lo autografiara.
¿Qué es tu vida?
Para, dame un segundo más. Después, cuando vos ves los videos del Rebbe, hay un rabino detrás que tiene una barba blanca, larga. Bueno, es con otro que estuve reunido. Y después me fui a rezar al Ohel. O sea, no fui a hacer nada vinculado ni a la economía, ni a negocio, ni a política, ni nada por el
In
estilo.
November, he wins the election.
Unbelievable.
And so I recorded actually a message on a video, because I do a lot of video. I didn't know if he'd see it. I recorded a message. Congratulations, we have met. And I hope you can learn from the book, from the Rebbe's teachings, what leader is. A leader is not just a political leader. It's not just an economic leader. It's a spiritual leader. To unite his people with a higher purpose. And, you know, that God put you in this place. And the next thing I know, I get a phone call the day after he was elected from him. And he says he'd like to speak with me, but now is not good because he's very pressured. Can he call me? So I said, sure. A few days later, I said, I'll make some time for you. You know?
And you did.
He calls me after Shabbat. I made Havdalah. I'm sitting in the kitchen here in my house. And I get a phone call right after Shabbat. President Milei. And he starts crying and very emotional. He wants to thank me for my message. And he's coming Monday morning to New York again to thank this. Be his first official trip. Not to Washington.
As an elected president.
Not to Washington. Exactly, as an elected president.
Not to Washington?
Nothing. He went to Washington afterwards.
Unbelievable.
He came to, and I just saw he was a real soul. So he asked me, would I go to the Ohel with him? So I said, sure, what time? 7 o'clock. He's going to be at 7 a.m. So I went, and we spent around 3 hours with breakfast with a few of his people. And no airs about him. Like, it wasn't like he came with a whole entourage. And it's a very him, his sister, and another 1 or 2 people.
Wow.
And in the Ohel, I saw a man, he was standing there saying Tehillim, Psalms. And like the media was there, a lot of media, no comments. Like he didn't make any noise about it. He didn't. Like most people, media right away. Media, he has a statement to make, and you know. And I just saw a humble person. I never saw something like that because usually a president, you know, he's a president. He was sitting and listening to me for an hour without saying one word. Anyway, we hit it off. He was hugging me, and we became like huggers every time. Then he told me, come to Argentina. I couldn't go for the inauguration, so I went A month later, we had a meeting in his office in the presidential palace. And that's when he told me he's going to Israel. He'd like me to go with him. So I went.
That's a famous trip that you made.
And then I met him at the Yad Vashem, and he hugged. Then the Kotel, I told him it's the month of Adar, because it was the first day of Adar.
Auspicious month in
and
Jewish
Adar is a month of joy, that you increase in joy, right? Auspicious month.
So he's the kind of guy who likes.
So he says to me, Joy, let's dance. We're at the Kotel. His people say, no, it's not so good. It's the public. It's pictures. You're president. He said, no, it's Adar. You have to dance. We all have to celebrate. And we started dancing. And there's videos of him dancing, uninhibited. He doesn't. When he sees something that's true, he doesn't. It's like usually a president has to talk to his advisors. Is it appropriate? They censor it. He's a guy from the gut. So we've hit it off. We WhatsApp each other. We're personal, and I love the guy. He loves me, and we have this deep connection.
What a great opportunity in your hand, and what a great
absolutely
responsibility also to make sure that this force that President Milei has is used in the best possible way.
Absolutely. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like a little like, I don't want to compare myself to Mordechai in the time of Achashverosh. He was in the king's palace. So I've spoken to him. I said to him, I think our connection is that you have to, you're the world leader. You have to get all the world leaders in the world to join together and higher the moral standards of our world. So I think I know my role. Obviously, a lot of people come to me for business connections with him. I say, look, my goal he's a man that God put him in this place in a world that needs direction and guidance. We don't have leadership. Maybe he can create a spiritual revolution. And I feel that very strongly. So that's the level of our connection.
When is the next time you're going to meet him, you think?
Maybe March. We'll have to see the schedules, but I'll meet him. But we communicate very informally. I'm not a formal person, very...
Yeah. You're very
just
accessible.
on a very personal level. And I think he has an unbelievable opportunity here. I mean it seriously, with all the wars going on. Have you heard any leader or any person out there saying, we have to join together, brothers and sisters of the human race? There's no such conversations. Everything is like people are administrators, they're firefighters. There's no visionaries. So I think he's a guy that can have that vision, that could help. I mean, if he challenges all the world leaders, where's our leadership here? What are we doing? Where's our leadership? We have to have, like World War II, there was, the Nazis forced it. But once it was this, the people realized this was a fight of good over evil. I think the same is true today. Not to say anyone's evil, but I'm just saying there needs to be a clarity.
Oh, there's plenty of evil.
Yeah, exactly. And you need to have that type of leadership. We don't have it. Not in the United States, not anywhere. So I think he can be a catalyst that can get that going.
Okay, so and
can you imagine the world? Imagine him calling a conference of the 20, 30 largest, great world leaders and saying, where do we stand? What are we teaching our children? What do they learn every day? Are they accountable? Who they answer to? Is it just dog eats dog? Everyone just does whatever they want? I'm not talking about a religious crusade. I'm talking about simply a moral, concept of what's right and what's wrong. And I think we live in a world today that people want that. We're not living in barbaric times. The world is the Western world. I mean, the world in general. And let's put on the defense all those that don't agree with freedom and liberty for all.
That's right. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
It's definitely. And there's a great yearning in the world, I think.
Yeah.
There's a momentum now to be used. Absolutely.
There's a big wake-up call. Whenever there's disruption, the good news is people are not apathetic. There's a certain an alert. When people are complacent, it's very hard to get their attention. I remember pre-COVID, 2019. Get someone on the phone, my life is good, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to a baseball game, a football game, But today, people are much more, I can see from my work. My work has exploded.
People
skyrocketed, much more receptive, much more vulnerable. They feel like a need for something. That's the big thing. They say the guy asked his friend, what's worse, apathy or ignorance? And he said, I don't know, and I don't care.
That's right.
Yeah, I use that a lot, yeah.
Rabbi Jacobson, thank you so very much for the inspiring words. And
Absolutely.
Just have a happy Hanukkah and good health. And
happy Hanukkah to you. Happy Hanukkah
spread
to
the light.
all your followers. And may God bless us all that we should bring more light into the darkness and the world will be filled with light.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Same here.
Pleasure.